Good morning. How are you? It is time for the monthly wrap-up of every single book and every single film that I watched to give you recommendations based on my lived experience. What month are we in? October. We're talking September. Ooh, the passage of time. As always, we are going to start with the books, and this month the books were rather, I wouldn't say niche, but I'd say as per usual, arts related, art centric, and the films we're going to have to look at. In September I watched 4 films and I read 3 books, so I have 7 recommendations slash reviews for you for September. Not my most consuming, media consuming month, but I was very intensely doing some final edits, hence the lack of reading and watching once again. But that means that I had more of myself to give to these books rather than stretch myself thinner across more of them, so I can talk about them a little bit more. Before any of this though, let's talk about the wonderful, consistent and always relevant, trusty, reliable and very good sponsor for this video, and that's Squarespace. And Squarespace has saved my career multiple times by allowing me to have a platform to base it on, so let's call them in. Hello Squarespace, it's Dakota. Squarespace is a platform which makes the whole process of creating and maintaining websites seamless and earnestly enjoyable. I say this from personal experience because in an endeavour to offer a space to spotlight underground artists and writers, I built an online literary and arts journal / magic little community via Squarespace. You can submit your poetry, fiction, art or essays based on the monthly prompt and I just might publish your work. Squarespace is brilliant for turning passion projects such as this into professional projects and morphing dreams and concepts into tangible realities. This is made easier via features like Design Intelligence, which builds on 2 decades of industry-leading design expertise to craft a bespoke digital identity to use across one's entire online presence. There's so many more incredible features like Squarespace Payments, which is the easiest way to manage your payments in one place, as there is the option to sell content and earn revenue. Coming from a considerably technologically inept girl who built her own entire site from scratch, it is honestly so fun to design and tailor to your needs. You can head to squarespace.com/DakotaWarren to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using code DakotaWarren. I just hung the phone up from Squarespace. Thank you, Squarespace. Let's start with the books, as per usual. Always start with the books and then we can lean on to the film. So I read 3 books and they're all tiny, and although not tiny per se, I mean it's still a feat to read 3 books in a month, I suppose. It's 3 small books in a month, but for me obviously it's quite low. Anyway, the first book that I read this month is the Paris Review. This is number 248 edition and it is summer 2024. It looks like that. Why am I wiggling it around like it's a... I've never done that before. Have I done that before? Do I do that? Surely not. I picked this up in New York when I was in New York in September and I got it from the MoMA gift store. I think it was the MoMA gift store, because I always struggle to find editions of these and I love the Paris Review. I'm subscribed to all their emails and everything, their Instagram account with the little excerpts. Paris Review, I'm a big fan of the Paris Review. This is just a compilation of summer of prose, interviews, poetry and art, and it was good. I liked it a lot. You can always tell if I like something by how many pages I have dogged, because that means that they're things that I want to go back to and reference. And there's a lot of things that I've referenced. There was a really good one. What was it? Kay Patrick did a short story in here called Blue, and I really loved Kay Patrick's debut novel Mrs. S. That was wonderful. What else did I really enjoy? Mary Robertson. I've never heard of Mary Robertson before, but she's got an interview in here and it's so interesting. Sometimes I tend to avoid interviews from people that I don't know too well because I'd rather know and relate to what they're speaking about. But this one I read because I wanted to and I'm now absolutely obsessed with her. Her way with words is magical. She's an older woman who's written some stuff in her past and she's got this massive history of writing and this career transgression from starting out with poetry and then writing non-fiction and these kinds of things. Look into it yourself because I'm gonna do it no justice whatsoever, but her way with words is wonderful and she's like my literary other self, because reading her words felt like reading my own journals, and also I felt like seeing myself in the future as well, specifically her past and how she uses this and reflects on this to create what she has today in her current writing. She speaks about having ADHD, and she speaks about being raised Catholic in Catholic school system and rebelling and all these things, and this guy. So it was nice to read that. It felt very, I felt like I was a part of something. There's one called The Oyster Diaries from Nancy Lehman, and that was really incredible. I really loved that. It had some it was gorgeous prose, and I want to now look for the rest of, that was my introduction to her, and so now I'm going to look for the rest of her works. But this was, I very much recommend the Paris Review in general. The curation of poetry and prose and so forth is always wonderful, and they interview very interesting people. This is Desire by Haruki Murakami, and this is a collection of his short stories. I picked this up at Book Bar in London near Arsenal Station, one of my favourite bookstores, FYI. They've got incredible curation. I can walk in there and look anywhere and know that there's going to be something really niche and cool that I've not yet seen or heard of. So this is that. I wanted a quick, easy fiction read because I don't know if you've, I'm just addressing you personally, I don't know if you've watched my previous videos, but I was a massive fiction girly, but then when I started writing my own fiction, I found that I couldn't really read much fiction, and I speak about this a lot, so if you do watch all my videos, you're probably so sick of me talking about this, but I'm trying to transition back into fiction, basically, because I mostly read non-fiction and poetry. I just find I get more from it, ironically. I don't know why. And this is a trajectory because my mother is the exact same. I remember growing up, my mother always preferred non-fiction and had this thing against fiction. I couldn't work out why, and now that I've aged, I find myself gaining more from non-fiction because I feel like it gives me more... I don't know. But I do love fiction, and I don't want to lose my love for fiction. I was just focused on other things, and so trying to hook myself back into my love for fiction via some short, sharp, punchy, exciting things. And I do have a good lineup for fiction that I want to read. You should see my to-be-read shelf, which is directly across from me out of camera, but I do have some good fiction coming up, in case you're thinking to yourself right now, oh, but Dakota, you used to recommend the greatest fiction. I really would love if you could do that again. I'm trying, bear with me. This is one of them. Haruki, back to, I'm sorry for that. Sorry about tangent. This is Haruki Murakami's Desire, collection of short stories, very much in his voice, sharp, punchy, concise, to the point, succinct. That's my new favourite word. That's one of them. And they're all, I mean, obviously his perspective is always like kind of a pervy man. I've got one page book, dog-eared, and so apparently this was quite beautiful. Oh, this is regarding the 1960s, and it's called A Folklore for My Generation, a Prehistory of Late-Stage Capitalism. And I really like that excerpt. You can pause it if you like. But I liked it. This was good. This was nice to get me back into the gist of things once more. This is Goya. This is a reread for me. I picked this up from Oxfam, the one in Hampstead, I think over a year ago at this point. And I read it, but I read it briefly because I had it on the train. And what it is, Goya's an artist, by the way, one of my favourite artists in the whole entire world. And this is one of those old little pocket libraries. And it's got all the pieces as well as it goes into the pieces a little bit. And some of the pieces you can pull out like that. You can pull them out and put them on your walls, which is always great fun. It's got little, you know, I can just take that out and pin that up, and I love that because I love to cover my walls of my flat in things that I love and things that inspire me. But so as I was saying, my first read of this wasn't, I'm on a tangent today. I'm not caffeinated at all, so I'm feeling quite scattered. What was I saying? Looking at you like you distracted me. I sat down the other day and went through it properly and read about some of my favourite pieces of art, and the little definitions are very, it's just like a very brief paragraph in each. It doesn't ramble, it's very concise to the point, which I appreciate. One of my favourite pieces, and so I really recommend, if you do have a favourite artist or an artist you're even interested in or an artist you don't even know of but you find a book of their art in some store, I recommend getting it because it's very special to know what the pieces are about and the process behind them and a bit about the artist himself. So that was this one. The 4 films that I watched in September, the first one was on the flight back from New York to London, and this is called The Teacher's Lounge, directed by Ilka Katuk. And it's about a teacher. There's this scandal within the school. She's new to the school, and there's a scandal where somebody's stealing money out of people's pockets when they're not attending to their coats. and everyone assumes it's a student, and there's this investigation as to all the students, and this teacher finds out that it's actually one of the other staff members, and so she brings it to everyone's attention, but then it just kind of spirals into this whole thing where everyone turns against her because it's invasive and she should have minded her own business, and this teacher who was struggling and a single parent got fired and all these things, and it's this massive spiral, and all the students then turned against her because the teacher that got fired had a son that they loved, and she pulled the son out of the school, and it's this whole thing, and the teacher's just, you know, I think it's strange because she thinks that she did the right thing. It's a real play on morality. It makes you wonder what you would do in this situation. It's quite psychological. She did the right thing, right, by catching this teacher who was stealing and telling on her. But did she do the right thing? Should she have just minded her own business if she wasn't personally having her money stolen and that kind of thing? It's an interesting play on morality. I gave it 3.5 stars because the acting was really, really, really good. The acting was incredible. The kids were incredible. The teacher was incredible. And it was good, and it was interesting, it was unique, but I was a little bit bored. Somebody described it, I read a review where somebody described it as whiplash for teachers, which is, I think, a really good way to put it. If you know, Whiplash is a great film. One of my favorites, one of everyone's favorites who's ever watched it, and it's about a drummer who has this very intense, obsessive passion for drumming. How does that relate to this teacher, you might ask? Well, I guess you're gonna have to watch both. The next film that I watched was Cleo from 5 to 7, 1962, directed by Agnes Varda. This is amazing. I loved this. I love this so much. This is one of my favorite films now. Set in the 60s in Paris, and it's a real-time portrait of a singer who is set adrift in the city as she waits the test results of a biopsy. So she thinks she's dying. She thinks that she's got not long left to live, and all these signs pointing towards her dying and her illness being terminal, and so she's in this kind of like terrified state. There's cameos from Jean-Luc Godard and Anna Karina, incredible, and it's just really good. It's really beautiful, it's very cinematic, it's very pretty to look at, as is all of the films that I love. It's scary because she thinks she's dying, but she's spoiled rotten, and everyone's saying you've got the perfect life, but she can't just tell them she thinks that she's dying, and it's this, you have to be very present with her because you don't know how much time she's got, but then it kind of, the timeline zips around anyway, and it's just very beautiful. It's no secret that I like French New Wave. I like New Wave films, Czech New Wave, French New Wave, all of it. And I like, that was the ending, there's an ending scene where she, after this whole turmoil, where she realizes that she is very happy, and it's very special. I recommend very much. That was a favourite film that I watched all of September. The next film that I watched was, I don't know how to say this, La Chimera. La Chimera. La Chimera. La Chimera. La Chimera. La Chimera. I think La Chimera feels right? I don't know. Anyway, this was 2023, directed by Alice Rohrwacher. Oh, I always have trouble with pronunciation. This is recently out and it was very popular, so if you haven't heard of it, I'll be surprised, but this has got that guy from Challengers, what's his name? Little rat man. I don't know his name. Josh O'Connor. He's out of jail, just out of jail, and is a crumpled English archaeologist living in Italy, and they're grave robbers. And that's a really cool concept. I think like a movie about grave robbers is really cool. And he's so grumpy. He just walks around sulking like this, and people speak to him and he's just so grumpy. But I guess there's like some kind of underlying context that you have to kind of unpick yourself. They all did him dirty because he went to prison and they didn't, for grave robbing. But anyway, it's about grave robbing, and it's about the connection to these old dead things and these rituals and this mysticism and these dead, well not dead, but dying kind of traditions and things that stem from religions that are bygone or have morphed. It was very beautiful and very strange, and I would like to rob a grave now because I've been influenced to rob a grave. I want to dig down and see what's there. That's so cool. But I didn't love it. And I think the reason I didn't love it is because everybody told me I was going to love it. I was set up for failure there. Every single person I spoke to was saying, Dakota, you have to watch this film, you're going to love it, it's right up your alley, it's so weird and it's about grave robbing. And so I went in with really high expectations, and then I enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, but I didn't love it. And so thus I think it was worse than it was, but it wasn't bad. Anyway, I liked it, but I didn't love it. You might love it. You might like it. The last film that I watched in September was The Substance by Coralie Fargeet, and I got to go to an early screening of this via Mubi, and it was the event in itself. We didn't realise they'd hired method actors to walk around and serve people at the bar and everything, and we didn't know that. We thought they were just bartenders and stuff, and then you'd have a conversation with them and they'd have this real drool and say, "You have to try this substance. Wouldn't you like to try this substance? Everything's so wonderful." And we didn't know what was going on. We all went into the cinema terrified. A guy came up to me dressed in a doctor's suit. Nobody made a big deal out of this, and so I was freaking out. Everyone was acting like this was normal. A guy came up to me dressed in a doctor's suit and wrote something down on a clipboard and slipped a note to me and said, "Shh," and walked off. And I thought he was giving me his number. I thought he was flirting with me. And then I opened up the note and it said, "You're the perfect candidate." And so then I started freaking out, because keep in mind we hadn't seen the film yet, so I had no idea what was happening. No idea. I didn't know what the film was about. I never go to these screenings or previews or premieres knowing what it's about. I like to go in having no idea, because then I'm always surprised. And so I thought this guy's flirting with me, and then I thought he was trying to kill me, and I just didn't know what was happening. And I was showing my friend, I was like, "Can you believe this?" And she was right with me. She was, "Oh my goodness, what's happening?" And then we didn't know as well, on top of that, there was photographers everywhere, all taking pictures of our reactions. It's a photograph of me opening up this note that says, "You're the perfect candidate," from this random doctor man. And I'm like, I'm terrified and confused. Anyway, then we went to see the actual film. This is a hot topic right now. I love that I just gave you a whole story to avoid talking about the film. It's a hot topic right now because everyone loved this film. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone thinks it's a really, really good, shocking, incredible film that opens up important discussions. Me and my best friend didn't like it. And I said that to some people, and everyone who I say it to says, "You're wrong, I can't defend you on this." It's about personal taste first and foremost. Taste is subjective. And all of my friends who are film buffs really love the film and say it's incredible, and I'm sure it is, but I just didn't. I think it could have been done differently. It is such an important topic, you know. Sorry, this film is about, for those of you who haven't seen it or heard of it, The Substance has got Margaret Qualley and Demi Moore, and it plays this woman who is aging, and everyone, the entire world around her and society is saying, "You're aging, you're worth nothing." And so she does this experimental procedure to be young again, or have this younger self merge from her. And obviously there's dire consequences to this. And it's a horror film, so inherently it's very disgusting, and there's a lot of body horror as metaphor and that kind of thing. And I think that sounds really cool as a setup, and I did enjoy the first two acts, but by the last act it lost me, because I think it was just a bit like on the nose, but everyone's saying that's the whole point, you know. I just think it could have been done differently. Finally opening up about ageism within the industry and everything's very important, and it's very important that a woman directed this, as it's about that, ageism as a woman in the industry and the pressure to be young and beautiful and have a perfect set of. I think the premise was really good, and I think the idea was really good, and I love the idea of, I love horror as a metaphor. I love female body horror as a metaphor for experience and rage. I just think it was too on the nose. I think it was too shock factor, and I think I'm guilty of this all of the time as well, but I think that I notice a lot that when a film is quite shocking or quite jarring, because people are shocked and jarred, they think that they are moved, thus they think the film is very good. I'm not saying the film's bad, I'm not saying you're not moved by it, I'm just saying that's my experience with myself. That's everything I read and watched in September. Thank you Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Always incredible, reliable, consistent sponsor for these kinds of videos. Thank you for watching, and I hope you got something from this apart from me yapping. I think I just did a 10-minute monologue on The Substance. Lots of love.